is any of this getting better?
Um, To some extent, yes. And I think it's really important to give credit where credit's due, in that there is increasing recognition, particularly amongst the higher echelons, that something needs to be done, that there is a major problem. So, for example, 2 summers ago, in response to yet another allegation of serious sexual assault, the then Secretary of State for Defence announced very hurriedly a review of what he called inappropriate behaviours, which, given that it was in response to an allegation of sexual assault, seemed to be slightly understating it. But in any event, I can't remember what his rank was at the time. I think he was I can't. Anyway, it's called the Wigston Review, and I think he was an Air Chief Marshal, Sir Michael Wigston. He conducted a review of the extent of the problem, and he looked at lots of different independent-ish sources of information. So, for example, he took the Army harassment surveys, and he looked at the Ombudsman's reports, and he looked at various other sources of information, and he provided this kind of scoping overview of the extent of the problem.
Oh,
and he identified there was a number of very serious problems. Surprise, surprise, that unacceptable behaviour, as he was describing it, was inappropriate behaviours were a very serious problem, and were disproportionately impacting on women and Black and ethnic minority personnel. Obviously, female Black and ethnic minority personnel having particularly serious intersectional experiences. And he made a range of recommendations, which the Ministry of Defence stated that it would accept in full, which all sounded very, very good. Fast forward 2 years, and those recommendations have not been put into practice in the way that he had anticipated. In particular, for example, and I do think this is really, really important, he had recommended that when somebody is suffering really serious sexual harassment or really serious racial bullying, these are really complex, difficult cases. They need to be independently handled. They need to be sensitively handled by people that really know what they're doing. So he said, we need to take the handling of those complaints outside of the single services. So if a soldier makes a complaint, don't let the army deal with it, give it to an independent body. Same with the Navy, same with the RAF. And although the Ministry of Defence said, in the full glare of the public spotlight at that time, we absolutely are going to accept the recommendations, they are not now going to do that.
Oh.
So it's remain the case that those most serious, sensitive, very, very difficult cases are still going to be handled and investigated by the single services. So if a soldier is complaining that she's been subjected to really serious sexual harassment by somebody in her chain of command, that is still going to be dealt with and investigated by the British Army themselves. And that's very, very disappointing. And that makes me think there is always going to be, it seems like there is always a limit to the extent to which they are going to accept the extent of the problem and do what they need to do to fix it.